Why did Mary offer sacrifices in the temple 40 days after Jesus' birth? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Luke on Walking Through the Bible.
The glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, turn to Luke chapter 2. We're going to be reading from verses 21 to 24. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Luke chapter 2, beginning at verse 21. And when 8 days were completed for the circumcision of the child, his name was called Jesus, the name given by the angel before he was conceived in the womb. Now when the days of her purification according to the law of Moses were completed, they brought him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord, as it is written in the law of the Lord. Every male who opens the womb shall be called holy to the Lord, and to offer a sacrifice according to what is said in the law of the Lord, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. Thus far in this chapter, we have covered the birth of Jesus and the visit to Jesus by the shepherds. Unlike what we get in our modern nativity scenes, the visit of the shepherds and the wise men did not occur on the same night, nor really in the same time period. Matthew makes it clear that by the time the wise men arrived, Joseph and Mary had found guest quarters to be in and were not found in the manger. It was most likely that the wise men came after the period of time that is being discussed here, due to the fact that Jesus is being brought to Jerusalem in today's reading, to a city where Herod would be. If the wise men had already come and left, going to Jerusalem could be dangerous, because it would be soon after that Joseph would be instructed to flee into Egypt. Coming down to verse 21, we find that on the 8th day Joseph and Mary's son was circumcised, following instructions given to Abraham in Genesis 17 verse 12. It is also at this time that he was named Jesus. The name of the child was given to them by the angel before Jesus was conceived in Mary's womb, and it means God is salvation. Verse 22 continues by telling us that some time had passed. Luke tells us this by using the phrase days of her purification according to the law of Moses, referring to Mary. How many days had passed since Jesus' circumcision? Can we know? This is one of the places where our study of Leviticus will come in handy. Recall from Leviticus 12, the law of Moses laid out instructions of what would happen after a woman gave birth. These instructions varied based on the sex of the child, but listen to the instructions for the birth of a male child as is found in verses 1 to 4 of Leviticus 12. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, If a woman has conceived and borne a male child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, as in the days of her customary impurity she shall be unclean. And on the 8th day the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. She shall then continue in the blood of her purification 33 days. She shall not touch any hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purification are fulfilled. The law of Moses codified God's instructions to Abraham concerning circumcision of the male child on the 8th day. But it also lays out 2 sets of periods that the woman needed to observe. She would be unclean for 7 days following the birth because of the flow of blood. On the 8th day, she would not be unclean in that regard, so the child could be circumcised. However, following that day, and beginning on the day of the child's circumcision, she would continue in the blood of her purification for another 33 days, meaning the entire process would take 40 days. From our study of Leviticus, we said that during this time, the woman couldn't touch any hallowed thing or come into the sanctuary to offer sacrifices. From other research, we found that because she wasn't completely clean, what this typically observed was that she wasn't allowed to keep the Passover or partake of holy food, like the peace offering, for only those who were completely clean could approach a holy God. After the 40 days were up, the woman was to come to the tabernacle, or in Jesus' day the temple, and offer sacrifices, a burnt offering and a sin offering. According to Leviticus 12, a lamb was to be offered as a burnt offering, and a turtle dove or a pigeon as a sin offering. If she couldn't afford the lamb for the burnt offering, she could bring 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons. One would be a burnt offering, while the other a sin offering. Mary wasn't wealthy enough to offer the lamb, so she offered the 2 pigeons or turtle doves. Verse 23 of Luke gives us another reason that Mary and Joseph, along with Jesus, was brought to Jerusalem, and it was so that he could be presented to the Lord. Jesus was Mary and Joseph's firstborn son, and so, according to Exodus, he belonged to the Lord. In Exodus 13, verse 2, 13 and 15, we read, Consecrate to me all the firstborn, whatever opens the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and beast, it is mine. Skipping down to verse 13. But every firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb, and if you will not redeem it, then you shall break its neck, and all the firstborn of man of your son, among your sons you shall redeem. Skipping down to verse 15. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh was stubborn about letting us go, that the Lord killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all males that open the womb, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. The firstborn sons among the Israelites were the Lord's, and thus Israel was commanded to redeem their sons, or buy them back, a process that was different than that of the firstborn among the sacrificial animals, which would be sacrificed. We'll learn more about this process, the Lord willing, in the book of Numbers. But that Joseph and Mary followed the law of God in all respects shows us how righteous they were in the sight of God and why they were chosen to be the ones who would bring up Jesus. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Luke chapter 2, verses 25 to 40, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.